Good morning and Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion is about the rebellion of Korach. And the Torah says, V'lo tieh keKorach v'chadaso. You shall not be like Korach and his assembly. And this remains as the everlasting command in the Torah, not to engage in disputes, in quarrels, and in strife. But rather a Jewish community and society must be a peaceful and a cooperative environment, where people work, although they may have disputes for the sake of heaven, but there is never strife and rebellion. However, the Torah tells us in the beginning of the parsha that Korach assembled 250 men in his rebellion against Moshe. And the Torah lists some of the key leaders in this rebellion. And one of them was a man by the name of On ben Pelas, On the son of Pelas. But surprisingly, we never hear of him again. He does not get swallowed up in the ground with the other 250 men of Korach. And the Medrash tells us the backstory. The backstory is that when he came home and he told his wife, honey, listen, we're going tomorrow to challenge Moshe Rabbeinu. We're going to fight against his leadership. His wife said, what are you doing? Why are you getting involved in this? You're going to end up as a loser anyways. If Moshe Rabbeinu wins this dispute, he'll be the leader. If Korach wins the dispute, Korach will be the leader. But either way, you're going to be a follower. You're staying home tomorrow. And the next day when the 250 men in Korach came to assemble their troops, including On, she stood at the door of the tent, dressed immodestly in her nightgown and with her hair hanging down uncovered. And when they saw her, they were religious men, they turned away and never took him along with the rebellion. Thus, she saved his life. And our rabbis say in the Medrash, this is what the verse in the book of Proverbs means, Chachmas Nashim Ban Sabaisa. The wisdom of the woman builds the home, that a smart, righteous woman saves her husband and her family from calamity and catastrophe, just like On ben Pelas' wife saved him from the downfall of Korach and his assembly. However, Rabbi Shmuel says, what was so great about On ben Pelas, his wife? All she said was something very logical. What are you getting involved? You're going to lose anyways. You have nothing to gain. Why do we credit her of being such a wise woman? And Rabbi Shmuel answers that to think rationally during the time of a heated dispute is a sign of wisdom. Under normal circumstances, the logic of On ben Pelas' wife wouldn't be so remarkable. But in the heat of a passionate argument and the dispute, human nature is that everyone wants to take a side and get involved and state their opinion. The fact that she remained cool, calm, and collected and looked at it objectively and clearly, rationally, without getting involved in the heated discussion and the passion of the fight, that's her wisdom. Tell a story about Chaim. Chaim Soloveitchik was a man of great chesed. His home was open to poor people, to needy people, and he would often invite women who had babies into his home and hire wet nurses to help them with their babies after they gave birth. And one time he observed a wet nurse, one of the nursemaids, got into a dispute, a heated dispute with another woman. And he went over to her and said, do me a favor. For the next hour, don't nurse the baby. And the woman said, why not? And Reb Chaim Soloveitchik said, because I see you're very angry, you're very stressed, you're very anxious, and it will harm the baby if the baby nurses from you while you're angry. You need to calm down. Anger and anxiety and stress and heated disputes create not only emotional and physical illness for the person who carries it, but to anyone who comes into contact with them. And therefore the Torah says, don't be like Korach and his assembly. Last week in Israel, they elected a new president, Isaac Herzog. And it was remarkable how the contention between the two leaders was conducted in the most distinguished, honorable, respectable manner. Miriam Perez, a woman who has been to our shul for Shabbat, ran against Isaac Herzog. But it was a model for all elections worldwide, how they treated each other with kindness, with respect, with honor, never spoke ill of one another. And even after Miriam Herzog lost the election, Miriam Perez, Isaac Herzog was kind and complimentary to her, and it was the most civil, honorable form of elections. Next week we're going into a different type of election in Israel for Prime Minister. Let us remember, whether it's in Israel or here at home, it's okay to disagree with one another. if it's for the sake of heaven, if it's for a good intention. We could have respectable arguments and disagreements, but never allow ourselves to lose our minds in the passionate heat of debate to the point that we no longer can think rationally, but rather like Om Ben Pelas's wife, when we think with logic, with clarity, with common sense, we avoid the pitfalls and the dangers of disputes and disagreements. Shabbat Shalom.